It's 12's under wraps, man. I guess I'll start with Hall versus Anderson. First of all, outstanding win for Uriah Hall. You know, that's one thing when I was doing tape on Hall that I was thinking about was like, dude has power and he's fast. I just I didn't factor in how much faster he would be than Anderson. Or, and in the first round you could tell he was the faster guy, so on on counters, obviously if he was able to counter, he was going to or if he was going to pull the trigger, he was going to be able to counter Anderson. And that he did in the third round and fourth round, dropped him twice. You know, mm, watching the finishing sequence, I thought, technically technically the fight was stopped early. Technically, ultimately, I understand why Herb Dean stopped it. Or at least for me as a fan of Anderson, I'm glad that he stopped it when he did, because I didn't want to see Anderson I didn't want to see his head bounce off the canvas repeatedly, and I I hated seeing that. Being a fan of Anderson, but being a fan of fighting, great performance by Uriah Hall. And, you know, before I wasn't much of a fan of Hall. I loved his kicking. It was awesome how good he was at kicking, how precise he is. Like when he decides to throw, it was like, I always thought of him as a hater, like like when Conor was getting ready to fight Floyd, and then I think it was on UFC or something, or maybe embedded. Uriah was bitching about Conor's Lamborghini taking up all the space in the parking lot or something. But realistically, especially after this fight, I'm a fan of Uriah Hall. Dude just wears his heart on his sleeve. That's the thing about him. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and you saw it. You definitely saw it at the end of the fight. All the emotion poured out. Anyone who's a fan of Anderson, this fight, and whenever you see Anderson lose, or this fight, or Israel Adesanya, that fight, the end of that fight, they're emotional for you to watch. Yeah, I got emotional after that fight when they embraced, when Izzy and Anderson embraced, and I got emotional, now. But this one was more emotional, especially at the end when Anderson's in the center of the octagon, and like, after watching post fight show, I saw that he was praying, or to me it looked like he was praying. But upon first seeing that one just like kind of, it seemed like he was it might have been both. He was praying, and then afterwards he might have been reflecting on his time in the octagon, and that was emotional to see. That was like, I mean, you only see stuff like that in movies, like like football movies, like high school football movies, where the big game is over, and the coach is out there on the field, and everyone else is gone, and they just reflect. It's kind of like that. Like you don't get very many you don't get very many uh sequences like that in real life, and that was a special moment and a very emotional moment for me personally. And Dana did confirm that they had it on contract that this was his last fight for the UFC. So as far as the UFC goes, whether Anderson wants to fight again or not, this was his last UFC fight, and you know it's a sad moment, in ways, but it's also a happy moment in ways. All the memories he put in the octagon, and the way he changed the world of martial arts as a whole and combat sports. That guy will forever be that guy will forever be in my memory. He was, back when I first started watching it, he was always my favorite. He will forever be in my memory. And it was, great performance by Uriah Hall. Bryce Mitchell, Andre Fili, it was a good fight all around. It didn't, Andre Fili, he surprised me a little bit. I honestly didn't see that he was going to be able to do that. I should have watched more tape. I should have been more familiar with Fili. It was a very competitive fight, which, I don't know. Me being Bryce Mitchell, since he's from Arkansas, and like I said, he's the the manifestation of Arkansas, man. And obviously I root for him whenever he fights, and I would have, but still, I mean, Andre Fili showed that he's good. His best bet of winning the fight was on the feet. The takedowns from the first round, that played a factor in his fighting the whole fight, but particularly after the first round. He uses a lot of energy getting out of particular situations. And that's a good learning experience for someone like Bryce Mitchell. It was crazy that he got up. He was ranked number 15. I hadn't looked at the featherweight division in months. I don't know the rankings by heart, except for like the top. Maybe not even that anymore. But it was a good fight for him, a good learning experience for him. And it was a good fight for both guys. They showed just how good they are. And yeah, it shows them where they need to improve. And it was a great fight. Greg Hardy, great performance by Greg Hardy. Knocked down in the first round, knocked down and TKO. Wait, was it scored? Knockout TKO victory for Greg Hardy. For sure a TKO. It would have been a knockout if it had gone on any longer, because Maurice Green was in a super compromised position. He was clearly hurt, and yeah, the one thing with guys that are super athletic and that are still building their skill set when they come to the UFC is you never know what you're going to see in their next fight. And what you like to see, what you hope to see, is improvement. And that's what Greg Hardy definitely had. He improved a lot. And they talked about that it was, mostly mentally that he improved. And you could see that it wasn't like his last couple of fights where he was, it was almost like he was trying to survive in his last couple of fights. At least in a mental space, it was like survive. In this fight, it was, I want to destroy this guy, and that he did. Yeah, he was breathing pretty heavy, but you could see in the post fight interview that it was more than just breathing heavy for Greg Hardy. Um, and it makes so much more sense when you remember that he had one of his cornermen bring an inhaler in for him. Clearly, this dude suffers with asthma, and the way he was breathing, a couple of things. One, and the only reason I know this is because I have asthma, and I've suffered with it, and well, I don't like using the word suffer. I've managed it, and I understand what to do and what not to do with it. And by the way he was breathing, yeah, in moments he was trying to control it, and then sometimes he was. I mean, like when guys get tired, they don't. When guys get tired, who don't have that issue, you see it's a lot of. You don't see a whole lot of let me move this a little. You don't see a whole lot of chest moving, right? You see a lot of the back, them like when they exhale really what's the word? Exaggerating the exhale. When people have an asthma attack, what they really exaggerate is the intake because they feel like they can't get enough air, and what it really is they're not getting as much air as they would if they're breathing normally, but they're not able to breathe out as much air. I mean, as much carbon dioxide as they would if they were breathing normally. That's what, the way the airways in the lungs close up, that's what's really happening. Is it's harder for them to get carbon dioxide out, so their body's just is storing air. And like 2 years ago, I had an asthma attack, and I went to the hospital, and air sac in my lung popped, and that's it's from that problem. Like there's so much air, and there's not any carbon dioxide coming out, and these sacs, they overfill and they stop they start popping, and then air goes around the lungs, goes around the heart, and you have to let the body absorb that air. So I'm sure he's on his inhaler right now as we speak, taking it as needed. But the way he was breathing also, there's a technique. When you're having an attack, there's a technique, a way of breathing that helps to manage it, when that helps you relax, that helps your body relax, because when you're trying to breathe in and you're exaggerating your intakes, you're tensing a lot. There's a lot of tension there. Once you learn how to relax and focus more on not taking as many like deep intakes and relaxing and exhaling as much as you can, that definitely helps. And like how he was breathing in the post-fight interview and after the fight, he seems like he's very, very dependent on his inhaler. And I would like to see him get with Boss Rutten. If if anyone is which hopefully Boss Rutten saw that and tried to get in touch with him. I hope he did, just for his sake, because I'd hate for him to actually have an asthma attack in a fight, that would be terrible. Because it's not only going to be a bad night for him in the fight. That's dangerous to have that's very dangerous. And I have an O2 trainer. I got after that attack back in 2018, and I've been using it recently quite a bit, and yeah, it's definitely helped. Um, it's definitely helped, and the whole reason Boss created that was because he had asthma. He had asthma since he was a kid, and he used to have to carry an inhaler with him everywhere he went. And since he started using that, his invention, I think he said that he doesn't carry an inhaler with him, or he carries one with him, but he's like, before the O2 trainer, he'd have to use it once or twice or whatever. I think he said he hasn't used one in years, so he should definitely get with Boss Rutten on that. Maybe even train with him once. So he can give him some pointers on how to deal with asthma while training. Because football is different. You're performing for 6 seconds and you take a rest. 6 seconds and a rest. Just for a play. And then with fighting, I mean, it's 5 minutes, and then you get a minute rest, and 5 more minutes or whatever. So definitely, I would want to see, for his health, I'd want to see him get in touch with Boss Rutten, try the O2 trainer out. Like I said, that thing is awesome. Kevin Holland had a great, he had a great performance, even though I think his opponent took it on short notice, and he was clearly undersized. He should probably be fighting no head. He looks like he could do lightweight, but I'd at least want to see him fight at welterweight. I don't think middleweight's too big for him. He was fast in there, but I'm glad Dana said that he was okay. It was most likely that pain that he had in his neck was most likely muscle spasms. So yeah, I hope he's okay. And ultimately, his great performance by Kevin Holland. He was strong in the clinch, clearly strong with the takedowns, strong with the grappling, and the dude is pretty good in front of the camera. He can talk. Some of the things he was saying to Megan O'Leary, I think he said something about whatever, and that made me cringe a little bit. But other than that, the dude's comfortable in front of the camera. He's comfortable in front of the microphone. He can talk. And I like where he's at in terms of the fight game. And yeah, great performances. Miles John that was the knockout of the night. That was the best knockout. And that's all I gotta say. I'll see y'all next time.